Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Kinks and Beats Daily. I'm your host, Tony Fry. Happy Monday to you. Today, we are talking about a Kinks record that I really enjoy that is kind of a deep cut. Even though it's off a really great album that had a ginormous hit on it. I don't know why I just said ginormous. I don't ever really use that word. The song is called Situation Vacant. It was released September 15th, 1967 on the Something Else by the Kinks album, which did feature the now legendary album closer Waterloo Sunset, which we will talk about at some point during this podcast. The album as a whole is kind of notable. It was the last album to feature, what's his name? Talmy? I don't know how to say his name. He produced all of the Kinks' early stuff. He produced the Who's early hits. And by the end of this, Waterloo Sunset being the first self-produced song that came out of these sessions, this album as a whole is the last thing that he ever touched. For better or for worse. It's not like he didn't know how to produce an album. This is one of their best albums, and in a lot of ways is the start of their golden age. I think some critics might say the next album, Village Green, is the beginning of the golden age, but it's a stupid argument. This is the beginning of the golden age. Their last album was the beginning of the golden age. They're all great. Ray's firing on all cylinders. The band sounds great. Dave's guitar work is phenomenal. But we're not talking about the album. We can talk about that another day. Today we're talking about Situation Vacant, which is track 7 on side 1. It's the album, or the side closer on the album. It's a cool little rock tune. It opens up with a little piano, almost classical piano introduction by Nicky Hopkins, legendary English session man, who the song Session Man was written about. But then immediately turns into a cool little rocker. It's another one of Ray's tongue-in-cheek lyrics. It's about a couple. He was writing about couples a lot back in these days. Johnny and Susie. And they appear to be newlyweds, maybe. And the song starts off very happy. Susie and Johnny were happy. Earned enough to pay the rent. They were getting by. Things were going okay. They were happy. But Johnny's mother-in-law had too much ambition, and this made Johnny very upset. So immediately, the lyrics take a more sinister, dark turn. And the song continues with Johnny leaving his job, the only job he's ever had, in order to appease his mother-in-law. And he looks towards these situations vacant, which for those of you who are my age or younger, that is another term for the classified pages in the newspaper. For those of you who are 20 and younger, the newspaper classifieds was the monster.com hard copy edition. So turns out, he quits his job, goes to the classified papers, can't find another job. And this is all to satisfy his mother-in-law. And then at the end, in a beautiful Ray Davies twist, one of the things he's great at is he kind of changes the whole meaning of the song. So at first, you go through the song and you believe the mom wants Johnny to make more money, right? That's why he quits his job, so he can find a new job to make more money. But at the end, Johnny's got no money, got nowhere to go. Johnny's in a great big hole. Susie's separated, living with her ma. Now little mama's satisfied. She didn't want Johnny to make more money. She wanted Johnny to not be with her daughter anymore. And now she's satisfied. It's a cool twist. He still does it. I mean, look at the, I'm blanking on the title. It might just be The Letter from one of his more recent solo albums. And you go through the whole thing and you think it's a Dear John, and it turns out to be a suicide note. He loves putting that little twist at the end. The meat and potatoes of this song, straight ahead rock and roll. There's some cool, crunchy electric guitar rhythm parts. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the structure of the song. Hold tight while I grab my guitar. So, as we've talked about on several episodes already, and we're only 16 episodes in, and I've brought this up a few times with both bands, there's not a real strong chorus because there are so many strong choruses. So we've got like he starts in the key of E, sorta. He's starting on an E7 chord, which is already borrowing a note, and then switches to a B7. So he's going 1 to 5. And then the little, but Johnny's mother-in-law has too much ambition. He's just going chromatically down. So he's got this. Then slides down on F sharp 7. That's a cool card. And this is where it gets cool. Goes from that F sharp 7 to a B minor. And then in the next measure, goes back to a B7. So that B minor to the B7. Cool little turnaround. So you've got kind of two sections in the verse. It's an extended verse. And then obviously the chorus is the situations vacant, right? But that's almost like a bridge. It's 2 lines repeated. He does repeat it over 2 chords. Situations vacant, situations vacant. But then he goes back into that keep his little mama satisfied, which even though it's written more like the second half of the verse, it behaves in this song more like a chorus. And then you've got that that cool little hook in the guitar where he's going the 5th to the 7th. So he hits that E7 chord. So you So that's a cool little, and it adds a little bit of dissonance because you've got that 7th in there, the dominant 7th. So that actually, for all intents and purposes, acts like a chorus, even though it's the second half of the verse. And then, I've talked about this a few times on the podcast too, out of nowhere, seemingly towards the end of the song, he introduces a whole new theme. So instead of going up in fifths, the E to the B7, on the last section, he goes up in fourths. Which is a cool little turnaround, and it's a totally different. He hasn't done that anywhere else in the song. And now for the coda, the refrain of this piece, he's introducing a whole new melodic theme, a new chordal structure, everything, where he's doing that Johnny's got no money, got nowhere to go, Johnny's in a great big hole. Right? That's a whole new motif in the last 20 seconds of the song. Then it fades out and then it comes back. Right? One of those fake out endings. And the I would call it the second coda when it comes back in is using this structure. So now you've got this brand new idea that you haven't heard once the entire song. And it's the last thing you hear, and you hear it a couple times, like Ray really digs it in. The band, I guess. This would be an arrangement question as much as it is a songwriting question. But he really solidifies it where he's like, I got this cool little lick, the da 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 da, right? But I don't want you to forget it. I don't want you to miss it. So I'm going to really dig it in. So for being just, it's an album track. I think it probably could have been a cool B-side, but I mean, Waterloo Sunset is the obvious single on this album. But it's a cool little track, and it's always been a highlight whenever I listen to something else by the Kinks. It's a highlight track for me. So go ahead and listen to that and enjoy. I'm a little disappointed. I don't think there's a stereo version of it. And the mono version that we're all used to, little bit loud on the hi-hat in the beginning. That's just a minor quibble, I guess. But there's so much of this album has stereo alternate mixes, and for some reason this one doesn't seem to. Or it's just not a very good stereo mix. Either way. So that's Situation Vacant. As always, if you go to herohabit.com on Friday, this will be as a part of the weekly recap. If you sign up for our newsletter, we will send you those recaps every week. And so you can listen to the songs I talk about right next to the streamer for this episode. So you can listen to the song, then listen to my episode, and then go down to the next one. Swing by herohabit.com for any information about this website. We've got a Kinks group in our community section. You can email me at kinksandbeats@herohabit.com. You can call me and I will play your messages on this podcast. Try to keep it about the Kinks. If you want to just talk to me, I may not play those. But if you have one that you want to talk about a specific song for a minute or two, go ahead and leave those. We will play them on the podcast. 925-494-1739. That is an American number, so do with that as you will. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, what are we talking about tomorrow? Let me look at my schedule. Tomorrow, we are going to throw the first solo song into this podcast. And it's a Beatles day, so that narrows it down to John, Paul, George, or Ringo. But we're talking about a solo track tomorrow. I hope you will join me. Have a great Monday, everybody. I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye. This podcast is presented by the Hero Habit Podcast Network. Swing by HeroHabit.com today to comment on this episode and poke around our growing database of sports and pop culture news, reviews, and collectibles. HeroHabit.com. Collect your heroes.